Are we recording?
Yeah,
Should I get comfortable?
please do.
Yeah. I
Your hat is so much nicer than mine. I think I
I have five.
I should get another one.
Mine never looks like that because I have five to rotate through. I King's Furniture up in West Unity is going out of business. Did you know this?
Really?
I heard.
Holy cow, that's like half the town.
Yeah, well, do you know they do the Christmas
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
So I think they're making it permanently that
I
way.
see.
And I think they have several other locations. But I was looking to go get a brown chair or two brown recliners for the gunroom.
For your man cave?
Yes. And I thought, okay, well, if I do that, we're going to have to record some podcasts from in there to justify the business
Yeah,
expense, right?
yeah, just
Because,
kicked back,
yes,
smoking pipes.
absolutely. I haven't smoked a pipe in 20 years, and it was a tobacco pipe too,
Yeah, yeah.
not the other kind. But yeah, 20 years. I thought I was cool. I think every 18 or 19-year-old thought they would be cool and try to
Yeah.
smoke a pipe and then realize,
My grandpa smoked pipes,
oh,
so I was around it when I was a kid and I always liked that smell. And
oh, dude, I love the smell to
yeah,
this
he
day.
had it was a humidor. Had a humidor for his tobacco and all that,
Yeah.
and he put an apple slice in it to
Yeah.
keep it moist and
Yeah.
all that shit. Yeah,
Yeah. All the old timer stuff.
yeah, it was cool too. It was I'm a woodworker, so I remember this stuff. But it was all mahogany on the outside, and it was copper lined, and it had a felt seal around the door and everything.
Oh, it was a thing.
It was cool.
I thought I wanted to be a cigar smoker at one point. So I
Yeah.
smoked cigarettes and I got on cigars.com and you could get like the monthly club. And
Hmm.
if you bought at a certain level, they would send you, and I had like a desktop humidor. It was a very cheaply made Chinese thing.
Hmm.
And I think I had put all the cigars in it and just let them dry out. I'm not a huge cigar fan. Every once in a while, like in Vegas,
Yeah,
with a nice glass of whiskey,
it's
and
like a
if I'm with the right
thing.
crowd,
Yeah.
and I'll mostly just let it burn and drink the
The
whiskey.
only time I did cigars was Afghanistan of all places,
Yeah.
because like all the officers got into it and a couple NCOs and stuff, and I just kept getting invited to go smoke cigars, so I
Right.
would check it out once in a while.
That's what it's more social than
It is.
anything. And
It is.
I don't know. I smoked cigarettes for 10 years and I just that was more social than anything too. You're just at
Yeah.
the bar, why not?
Uh-huh.
But speaking of whiskey,
Whiskey.
we forgot to get we don't have any drinks. Why don't you get that down here? What these fake ice cubes that we have in here, you can it's probably dirty, so
I'm
let's
just gonna
not
put them
leave
on
them.
here.
Yeah, let's not leave those in there. Right. Yeah, that's not clean. Whatever. I think the whiskey will kill whatever's in there. I'm not on keto right now, so we might as well at least have something.
Something to drink.
What are we talking about in this episode?
Traveling with firearms? Is that what we're doing?
Traveling with firearms.
Traveling with firearms and firearm accoutrement,
Yeah,
maybe.
firearm stuff. We decided 4 minutes ago. That's what we were going to talk about
Uh-huh.
because we had spare time ish. We made spare
I
time.
was gonna say.
Well, you
I walked out on the floor and I was like, Luke, podcast.
yeah. Oh, okay. I'm not in the middle of anything or anything. But yeah, so we decided, well, right now is a good time to record. And we looked at our list. That stuff smells good.
Oh
It's just
yeah. It is good
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's
I like
let's
bullets.
start the podcast off right at least.
Cheers.
A little bit of
Cheers.
that's what they call dead air. Speaking of
Nothing
dead air
good about that.
silencers, right?
Yeah.
So we decided we're going to talk about the transport of firearms and silencers and things and stuff. I have traveled the country, the world, but specifically the country with firearms
Hmm.
because of past jobs.
Right, right. As a profession. Like
Yeah,
that was part of your job.
yeah. I
Right.
drove a lot and I flew a lot. And I had one of our really good customers actually text me earlier this week. Said, hey, and I think he's out of town right now.
Hmm.
And he texted me on like Sunday, how do you fly with a gun? What do you got to do? And he's getting more and more into firearms. It's really easy. It's a lot easier than a lot of people think. And you live in an RV
I do. And travel a
a
lot.
lot.
Hmm.
Like you live in an RV so that you can travel specifically in the wintertime.
Right?
And so you have a little bit of experience with traveling with firearms. I thought this would be a good topic to cover.
Sure.
So many different types of firearms. Let's just start. I'm going to ask you some questions and
Okay.
then you can ask me questions. And that's kind of how the podcast works.
Right.
The, when you're snowbirding, That's what
Hmm.
we'll call it because that's kind of what it is.
It is.
You don't like to be in the cold.
Right.
What do you travel with?
As far as guns go.
Well, so you are in a drivable. I know the answers to these, but
Okay,
go ahead.
okay. So here's how we travel.
Mhm.
I have a fifth wheel camper that is pulled with a Super Duty pickup truck,
Mhm.
and that's how we travel. Some firearms we keep in our camper when we're traveling, and some stay on me. I don't leave firearms in the vehicle ever, like when I'm out and about, because I think that that's probably the most likely thing to get stolen would be my truck.
Yeah.
You know, if my truck is disconnected from the camper at 3 o'clock in the morning and I can't park in a spot with my camper because I have a 41-foot long camper and it doesn't always fit my truck there, I'll have to park in an overflow lot, and I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving firearms in my truck because it's a real easy smash and grab kind of thing, you know?
You're separated from the truck, so don't use
Yes.
your vehicle as a holster, is what you're
No,
saying.
right. Yeah, good way to put that.
Yeah.
I carry concealed. I do look. It's real easy on Google now. I look to see who has reciprocity with Ohio
Hmm.
for concealed carry license. I know we're a constitutional carry state now, but you can still get a concealed carry license here.
Hmm.
And I advise that if you're traveling, because that concealed carry in Ohio may not carry over into the state that you are traveling in or through.
So I'm going to throw a caveat there.
Yeah.
Just to, information that I've gained while in my travels. The company that I worked for is out of Utah, and Utah experiences the best reciprocity that you can get as a non-resident. So that's
Okay.
the asterisk there. The
Yeah,
best
yeah.
reciprocity that you can get as a non-resident. In fact, I believe Utah offers almost everything that Ohio does. Maybe there's one or two additional. You cannot get a non-resident in Ohio unless you can prove why you need it. And the biggest reason there would be you work in Ohio. So
Work
if
in
you're
Ohio or military.
or military.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, which is working in Ohio, right? So
Hmm.
you can't get a non-resident Ohio concealed carry. So when we're looking at these states and traveling by vehicle, the ability to travel is going to be what's the word I'm looking for? Reciprocity. I was staring at the wall over there, and my brain just decided to go. I don't want to work right
I
now.
was waiting for you to start drooling.
I so the ability to get reciprocity in the states that you're traveling into is very important for your
Hmm.
concealed carry. We're going to go into it. In fact, I had to print this paper off that you can travel through any state in the United States if you are legally allowed to own a firearm,
Right.
but there's some really specific things there. So what you're doing is you're going ahead and finding who's got reciprocity with your state concealed carry permit, which is Ohio.
Correct.
And as an Ohio concealed carry permit holder, we do get to experience a large amount of reciprocity. I think
Quite
it's
a
like
bit.
40 or
It's
42
it's a
states.
lot. Yeah.
It's as much as you can get. We are
Hmm.
one of the better states. But again, if you're listening to this and you don't live in Ohio, look at a Utah non-resident, and they experience some very good reciprocity as well.
Cool.
So you're traveling, you look up what reciprocity you get,
Right.
and you carry on your person while you're driving.
I do.
Do you carry long guns or short guns or what do you
I
carry?
I carry a Glock 19 in a holster on my hip when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if it depends, it depends on where I'm going. So if I'm in the middle of nowhere, I don't worry about too much. My Glock is fine. If I'm in a rougher, let's say, urban area, I have my PDX.
That's the most politically correct this podcast has ever been.
Yes, yeah, up in the truck with me,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple mags up there
Mm-hmm.
just in case, especially transition areas like stopping for fuel, stopping for food. Anytime you're stopped, you just run across your chances are higher, than somebody messing with you around the road.
Do you ever unholster or take your holster out of your pants? Because you are outside or inside the waistband typically.
Yes.
You're not appendix. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, appendix just doesn't fit me very well. I'm gonna say no.
You just
I,
pretty much
I
carry it on your
don't.
person.
I carry it on my person all the time.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. I don't unholster. I don't. Now, when we're traveling, I'm not going into schools. I'm not going into
Yeah.
those kind of places. But yeah, I always have it on me.
Yeah, I used to be, and this is why it doesn't surprise me, the amount of people that do this. I used to be one of those that when I traveled, I would take the whole holster out with the firearm in it, and tuck it in between like the seat and the center
Hmm.
console, or even put it on the passenger seat. A
Sure.
lot of people do that, and I've tested myself. It's not as quick,
Oh,
and
it's not.
that's like saying you're going to be able to put your seatbelt on before you get in an accident. I want the quickest. I want the most efficient access to my firearm. That's the way I'm going to put that. Not quickest.
Sure. I used to for quite a few years I had a magnet,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because of the kind of car I was driving. It was a Camaro,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was very hard for me to get to a holstered weapon. So I either had to carry appendix or have it someplace else. So I used a magnet in that case,
Yep.
and it was a very strong magnet. Um, that would hold it up underneath the dash,
Yep.
so I could get to it if I needed to. But I don't like that because it becomes a projectile that has bullets in it if we get in an accident.
You can't hear me shaking my head on the podcast. I'm going to say I am very strongly shaking my head. Yes.
Yeah, so that's very. I was never comfortable with that. I guess I was comfortable enough to do it, but I don't recommend it. I think those magnets have a place. They're probably in your house more than anything else
Mm-hmm.
to stash a gun here, there, door jam, whatever. I use one for stuff like that. But yeah, so uh, the problem with having your holster, or with pulling your gun out and setting it somewhere is how often are you really going to practice that? I
Right.
mean, you're going to practice your draw from your hip. That's the thing. Well, hopefully you're going to practice, but how often are you going to practice snatching your gun from a location which may change because you just hit the brakes really hard and drawing it? Both your hands are tied up while you're pulling the holster off the gun. I just don't think it's a good idea.
I, for multiple reasons, will agree with you. So I don't like the inefficiency of having to get to the firearm in a different location. I vehemently disagree with those magnets. I think they're cool. You see, everybody sees them on Facebook. In fact, we sell magnets, a gun storage magnet here at the shop, and when I'm out there, I specifically tell people this is for gun storage, not for your vehicle,
Yeah, I know.
because we constantly getting targeted marketing from Facebook and all these other social media for these vehicle magnets, and they are cool. Well, and it's a good concept. The problem I have is, first off, you have to take your firearm out of the holster to use it. And every time your gun comes in and out of your holster, there's a chance for a negligent
Yeah,
discharge.
especially going back in.
Yes.
Yeah, and it just
That's
quick.
when the majority of people shoot
Yeah,
themselves,
yeah.
is reholstering into a soft holster.
Quick caveat: if you're carrying inside the waistband, I highly recommend if you're putting your gun back in the holster, you pull your holster out, put your gun in the holster, and then put your holster back inside your pants.
Yes.
Because and I know it's hard if you're using loops, but that's when people shoot themselves. Is they get their shirt or a piece of clothing or something stuck down in that holster, and it hits the trigger as they're reholstering.
And the asterisk to that is, of course, know how to reholster your gun with one hand if possible.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
Soft holsters are not recommended. Use a shaped holster, something that's going to have some retention. That way, you can reholster with one hand if need be. If you ever need to use your firearm, you're going to need to get that firearm put away before somebody responds and
Right.
shoots you. But yes, I don't unholster my gun. I just don't do it. So if you are the kind of person that feels like you need to, and it's typically going to be your looped holsters,
Hmm.
I carry inside the waistband predominantly. I'm not carrying right now. It's actually sitting on my desk because I take my keys and all my stuff out of my pockets when I do this. All right. So I've got my phone so it doesn't ring and all that stuff on my desk. And my Sig 365 is in a really nice Kydex holster that's got it's inside the waistband, and it's got loops that come out and go around my belt. They just
Right.
clip around the belt.
Mhm.
That whole thing comes off. Every time I go home, the whole I just unclip the little clippy things from my belt, and I take the whole thing off and put it in a handgun safe. I do have small children at the house, so it doesn't a live gun doesn't live out on the counter. I've got some other places for things like that, and that's where the magnet comes in.
Hmm.
By the way,
Oh,
um,
great place to, great way to stash guns.
in the closet, up
Yeah,
above the
yeah.
doorway,
Yep.
up underneath drawers. That's what I really like those magnets for, and I would imagine in an RV situation could be very handy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Now we don't travel with small kids. We have 5 grandkids and they
Mhm.
come over a lot. And we're into gun safety in my family and we talk
Sure.
about it with the kids and everything.
It's
And
not a new thing for your family.
no, but when we're traveling, I mean, I have no problem leaving an AR-15 on the dresser and a Glock 19 on the bedside stand. I think that's perfectly okay.
You know this, and people here locally know this, but a lot of people watching this probably won't. I like to buy and sell things, and I like recreational things, boats and RVs and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you know, it's a joke here at the store. What's Luke gonna have for 3 weeks, and then find a place to sell it? And I always find deals and resell them. But I've had a couple RVs, and I'm into the drivable RVs,
Hmm.
just because of where we're at in life with the two small ones.
Yeah, Class C's,
Yeah,
yeah.
Class
Hmm.
C's. We had a couple Class A's, and it's easier for us to travel even though I've got the large Super Duty, with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old stuck in their seats because
Oh
you
yeah.
can't be out of a seat now. Like they're it's not like when we were kids and you could stand on the front seat and hang your head out the window, right?
Right.
Or face backwards in the family minivan. So it's uncomfortable for the kids to be stuck that long. Well, in the Class C's and A's, they've got the TVs and they can kind of lounge a little bit more. The couch has seatbelts.
Hmm.
I always traveled with an AR in the bedroom.
Hmm.
And when we would start to move, I would get it set on the bed so that it wasn't necessarily bouncing around in the corner somewhere. But
Right.
I always had an AR when I was in the vehicle because I'm going to prefer to defend myself with 3 points of contact, a rifle over a pistol.
Hmm.
But we've talked about this in the past. The reason we have pistols is because it's very hard to conceal carry a full size rifle,
Hmm.
almost impossible, if you will, right?
Hmm.
Although it is 67 degrees out today, so
It's getting close.
it's like concealed carry MP5 weather,
Right.
right? There's
Or
a
PDX. PDX is much bigger than
Yeah,
MP5.
there's a meme that I was going around. I saw it yesterday. It was shared by Joe. Well, you know Joe,
Yeah.
and it's two girls talking to each other. It's like it's fall weather, and I can't wait to get a pumpkin spice latte. And then the bottom is two guys, and the one guy says I'm concealed carrying my Glock 19X, and then the next guy says I have an MP5 underneath my jacket. Right? That's the fall weather to us,
Right.
but not everybody gets to experience that. So you travel with a pistol,
Hmm.
and then you've got a couple firearms. When you look up the laws, do you look for anything specific, or are you just looking for reciprocity?
Uh, well, I started reciprocity, and I just kind of stay out of states that don't have reciprocity, period.
Mhm,
And then I look at what the rules are in those specific states.
mhm.
And I kind of go down the rabbit hole because it's my luck that I'm gonna get pulled over and have a problem.
Yep.
What I found is that you can travel through just about any state as long as you're not stopping for more than like food or gas, or you're looking at me all excited.
You're segued into this piece of paper I have here, and you don't even know it.
I'm that good.
I'm just going to read it then, because you're
Okay.
you're segueing into this, and I've known this because of all of my travel experience and the history of cross rifles. Is I started this as a concealed carry instructor, and we live not super we in close proximity in the country to Illinois and New York.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
If you're going to go west, you're probably going to have to go through Illinois. If you're going to go east, you're going to get real close to New York.
Mhm.
So I have taught this in my classes, but I'm going to read it specifically because
Two bastions of freedom.
right, right, the places that all firearm owners want to live. Um, Okay, note. This is the note on top because I printed this off from a website. It is suggested that if you need to travel through the state of New York or similar law states with a firearm, you should carry a copy of Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 44, 926A of the Federal Code.
Right.
Now, this is what I'm about to read, and I'm going to repeat that. It is Title 18, Section 926A, the Peaceable Journey Act, under Part 1, Chapter 44. Because you didn't know we were going to do audio reading on our podcast.
I didn't.
Notwithstanding any other provisions of any law or any rule or regulation of a state or any political subdivision thereof, this is where it gets to the meat and potatoes, any person who is not otherwise prohibited by this chapter from transporting, shipping, or receiving a firearm shall be entitled to transport a firearm for any lawful purpose from any place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm to any other place where he may lawfully possess and carry such firearm. If, during such transportation, the firearm is unloaded and neither the firearm nor any ammunition being transported is readily accessible or is directly accessible from the passenger compartment of such transporting vehicle. Now, the question I always get, I'm going to explain this because that's all lawyer speak. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to understand if you listen to it, but I understand that nobody wants to record this 30 seconds and listen to it again, right? Or
Right.
rewind this. The question I always get to that is we talked about it needs to be separated from the ammunition. Well, what if I have a minivan, right? What if I don't have a glove box? I don't know, that's a really weird vehicle, but whatever. Provided that in the case of a vehicle without a compartment separate from the driver's compartment, the firearm or ammunition shall be contained in a locked container other than the glove compartment or console. Okay. And what we're talking about there is a single cab truck or even a truck that you can't lock something in the back.
Sure.
Okay. Minivan, SUV, all becoming much more popular than a car with a trunk. If you can legally possess the firearm that you are carrying in part point A, which is where you started, and point C, which is where you're ending, then you can go anywhere in point B.
Right.
You can't stop. Okay. And there's going to be some very questionable uses of the word stop. You obviously will have to get gas.
I have I've watched some videos on this
Mm-hmm.
from some lawyers, which I am not, that say stopping to eat and stopping to get gas is totally acceptable.
Correct. Yeah, you can't make a planned stop to do a thing.
Right. You can't stay at a hotel,
Right.
and you can't go to, an amusement park, but you can travel.
But you can travel. The Peaceable Journey Act allows you to travel with your legally owned firearms through places where you cannot technically legally possess them, although we would all argue the legality of that illegality.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And there's plenty that are arguing that right now.
I have driven through downtown Chicago on my motorcycle, open carrying a pistol,
Sure.
because that's how much I don't give a shit.
Oh, I get that. And there's risk involved in everything, including traveling through Chicago without firearms. I mean, there's a lot of risk there. So you have to make up your own decision on what your risk level is for getting in trouble for having a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But I pretty much never don't have a loaded firearm on my person while I'm traveling.
I don't want to take the risk to lose my firearm rights, right? I own a gun shop,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
kind of a
I
big
get
deal
that.
to me.
Hmm.
But especially, depending on the motorcycle, I've been riding motorcycle for 21 years, and I've owned some Harleys. And when I do own a Harley and not something else, I ride up to the rally in Milwaukee every year. And
Hmm.
you, from where we're at, you either take a 2 hour detour south around Chicago.
Right.
You take an extra, and this is only if the ferry's going. You go across the ferry from Michigan, which is again a pretty ridiculous thing with a bike, or you go through Chicago.
Hmm.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And I have driven through Chicago many times with a firearm, typically following this Title 18, Section 926A that says it needs to be separated. But I
Hmm.
have once or twice left Milwaukee and just rode and just I wanted to get home. It's about a 5.5, 6 hour drive, and rode through with a pistol on my hip.
It's not usually an issue for us because we typically head dead south from here.
Yeah.
Like we beat feet for Florida.
And you can drive here to there.
Yeah, and then you just drive west.
Mm-hmm.
And you're pretty good headed out west. Don't take my word for it. Check the laws for the states you're going through. States are the ones that set these laws,
Yeah.
and so you have to check each state that you're going through. But yeah, I haven't experienced any trouble, and it's partly because of how we travel.
Also, there needs to be something to be said for if you don't look like a dumbass, you will not be targeted as a dumbass.
Sure.
When I did work in the industry, I was almost exclusively going into gun shops every day, some larger shops. I had, you know, not everybody does, like Primary Arms, Optics Planet, Bud's Gun Shop. Those were customers of mine. I also called on shops a similar size to where we're at right now, just,
Hmm.
good medium sized shops for the area. And so I dressed almost exactly like I dress now, the tactical tuxedo, right? 511 pants and a black polo shirt.
Right.
And I almost always open carried because it's just faster and easier to get to. And I'm not one of these big open carry makes you a target type person. It is what it is, especially if you're in a gun shops all day.
Hmm.
But that would find me traveling on the turnpike, stopping for gas, going into McDonald's, whatever shitty food decision I made that day. And the amount of times that nobody cared is almost all of them. I got
Oh
called out
yeah,
once in Detroit
dude.
because I don't
Almost
look
never.
like a dumbass. I'm carrying in a nice holster. I'm dressed professionally. I'm groomed well, minus the beard. I don't look like the guy that you should be worried about carrying a firearm.
I open carry a lot around here, and the only time anybody says anything to me is when I'm like working in my wood shop. So I'm in the stained,
Yeah,
cargo shorts and the oldest t-shirt I
at all.
own,
Yeah,
and I happen to go get a bottle of bourbon,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Yeah, that's when people kind of call me out, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Or whatever. But no, if I'm dressed for work, even in a t-shirt, if I'm dressed for work, people never say anything to me.
No. So there is something to be said for traveling. Just don't look like a target,
Hmm.
right? Don't and they're we talked about the gray man theory before. Maybe don't look like the guy that is illegally carrying a firearm if you so choose to do so in a place that you shouldn't have it.
Hmm.
Not that I would ever recommend doing that
Because it's illegal.
because it's illegal. Concealed means concealed. So the so yeah, traveling. So that's the easy way. Check your laws. USconcealedcarry.com, USCCA. I think the NRA has a portal.
They
Like
do.
all of the people have
Oh,
a portal.
geez, they're everywhere. Just Google it. It pops up right now. You can put your state in. Like I type in Ohio, CCW reciprocity,
Mhm.
and have all that I could ever care to read.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can typically click each individual state and find out. But again, know this: the Peaceable Journey Act allows you to travel from point A to point C through point B. Point B being a place that you could not legally own. I have been to Washington D.C. several times. You can, and from here you have to drive through Delaware, and I think we even hit New York for a hair to get there. Both places where I would not be allowed to have a concealed carry, but I can have it in my vehicle. Into the DC area. So in the city of DC, it's a whole different thing.
Sure.
Again, able to possess firearms in your hotel room typically because it's looked as your domicile. You're renting that place for the night. It is your home, if you will, and in every state, even the worst of the worst, California and DC, Chicago, you can own in your home. So very specific things. Chicago and New York being notwithstanding because they have city codes. But
Mhm.
yeah, federal law allows you to own firearms. I mean, we do have the Second Amendment. It's just then as you drill down into the state and then the city, like New York City, you have to be careful.
A little caveat. Did you see James Reeves from TFB TV, his trip to Las Vegas?
No,
They searched his bag and found a gun and like made a big deal out of it.
maybe I
He
did.
was at SHOT Show.
But so did he get? I didn't know that was him, and I don't know if it's the same video. Security came to his room at 2 a.m.
Uh, no, I
Okay,
I think
different
they
one then.
yeah. So I think they searched his
Mm-hmm.
bag, and they said he had to lock his firearm up with security.
At
He's
the
at SHOT
at the
Show.
hotel.
Yeah, at the hotel,
Yeah.
and he had to sign it out. He wasn't allowed to have it in his hotel room with him.
Vegas is a very gun friendly place.
It
It's those
is.
hotels. It's those
It's
individuals.
weird, and I think they're just worried about liability or whatever. They had
The Vegas shooting.
there was that, yeah, the
Yeah.
shooting, the
Yeah.
dude up on the 33rd floor or whatever, shot in that
You mean the
concert.
three dudes and however many people were helping him on the ground? But yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that thing.
That thing, sure. That we haven't heard any answers of in 10 years.
Right.
Okay. But yes, that
But
guy.
that,
Hmm.
yeah.
Not that I need a tinfoil hat.
No.
Yeah, no, they're worried about liability. So I am a gambler. That's the only degenerate thing I do anymore. All right, I don't womanize. I don't do drugs. I don't even smoke cigarettes anymore. I like to gamble. It's my vice.
Mhm.
And I go to Vegas a couple times a year. I go to SHOT Show every year for work. I'm using air
Yeah,
quotations here for
work.
work. Okay, and I like to gamble. And Vegas is a very gun friendly place. And now the specific companies are the ones you have to worry about. I gamble on almost exclusively Caesar properties, and I saw a video recently. I do not think it was the same video that you're talking about Caesar property security, and going up to a man's room at somewhere around 2 a.m. because they suspected, or maybe they had mentioned there was something going on with. They knew he had a firearm, and they were going to kick him off the property. You know what? I'll find the video. I'll
Yeah,
share
yeah,
it in the link
yeah.
on this podcast because it's infuriating, and
It
it's
is.
the uh, the the security teams. They dress very much like the sheriff's department out there, and it says security, but it's the same
It's like
looking
yellow
uniform.
in the
Yeah,
same form,
that
the same
brown and
brown and
yellow
everything. Yeah,
font.
yeah,
Yeah, so they're trying to portray that they're law enforcement when
sure.
it's essentially a rent a cop. They
Hmm.
have no ability to actually arrest or enforce the law, and
Hmm.
it's concerning, especially as a guy that's where I go
Hmm.
when I stay. So it's something to think about. Uh, Great segue, by the way. Going to Vegas.
Going to Vegas.
I'm not driving to Vegas. It's like 22 hours.
It is.
I fly.
Hmm.
How do you fly with a gun? Probably something you have much less experience
I
Like
have a
me.
whole, I've flown with a lot of guns,
Yeah, with a
always on
military ID.
orders,
Right.
always on orders, baby.
Right. Yeah, you've flown all around the world with
Yeah,
guns.
yeah, everywhere. But
A little bit easier when you were
no,
in uniform and going to shoot bad guys in the face.
wet,
Sure.
wet. But and I have flown civilian. Like when we moved back from Hawaii.
Hmm.
Yeah, we I've flown around with guns a little bit, but nothing like you.
I'm going to 100% preface this next whole segment with I am not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney and I cannot speak to you about the law specific to your where you're located. But flying with a gun is pretty easy. Flying with a gun is really no different than checking a bag. That's
Mm,
the big thing. When I do travel, if I have made the decision to not go with a firearm, and NRA recently, NRA was in Houston, and I went with a firearm because that was very close to the Houston or the Texas shooting, Texas school shooting.
hmm.
So we knew there was going to be a lot of protests.
Yeah,
The NRA prior to that, I'm almost always meeting friends of mine that have driven or are close by, and I would trust some of these people.
sure.
These are military friends of mine
Yeah.
to protect me, and I will not take a firearm to those situations. So I've been to NRA conventions and not taken firearms, and I would prefer to fly that way because I don't check a bag.
Right.
I'm a dude. I'm like my wife and I are the typical traveling pair. Okay, she has 3 bags full of shit
Yeah.
for 3 days. I can go for 2 weeks and have a carry on.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I've got 3 pair of underwear that I'll wash in the hotel sink if
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
be.
100%. I travel that way too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to not check a bag, but I find myself checking a bag most of the time I'm flying. When I go to Vegas by myself, or even if I go to SHOT Show, being the nature of what it is, some of my military friends or friends that I would travel with or go places with can't always get in. I will travel with a firearm. So the biggest thing to know when you're going with a firearm is you need to find something that's TSA approved case. And the approval process is incredibly low. It's easy. I
Hmm.
have found, in fact, this customer of ours that texted me recently asked me, I told him he needed to find a case. We sell some things here, and I do have some of the higher quality ones like Pelican. I told him to go to Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight has a
Yeah.
really inexpensive pistol cases.
Yeah.
And when you're flying, typically you're talking pistols. Now, I used to fly with rifles and pistols, and I'd have 5 or 6 different firearms. It's a different story. Probably going to pick, especially with the quality and the expense of those firearms, probably going to pick something that takes a few more locks. But go to Harbor Freight, and you have to find something, a hard case that cannot be accessed while it's locked. It needs to accept 2 locks. I do not recommend using TSA approved locks. You can, but the TSA approved locks, the TSA can get into them,
Right.
and they're also very easy to get into.
And the thing is, if the TSA needs to get into your bag,
Mhm.
they'll let you know.
They are, per federal law, not allowed to access your firearm without having you present.
Right.
And this is why it's so incredibly important. They will do it. The TSA is a bunch of thugs. All right. That's just
Mhm.
my opinion. They don't do any good for any of our security needs, in my opinion. The TSA will get into your shit without you present, but that's the benefit of having a checked firearm. Several benefits being number one, very strong chance they are not going to lose your bags
Right.
because there's a gun in there.
Yeah.
And now, holy shit, they lost a gun,
But
and it's on
they're
them.
yeah, they're on the hook for that
Yeah.
gun. Mm.
And number two is they won't go through your shit without you present. So thievery. The TSA is full of thieves. They're thugs. I probably can't express my opinion enough because I've traveled so much, so much. This is an old trick from photographers. Photographers that have 30, 40, $50,000 worth of equipment, they will put a starter pistol in because I think the overlap, the Venn diagram of people that might be into that career and people that don't like firearms, they're very strong overlap. So instead of having a real gun, God forbid, we got a real Glock and put it in there, right? Well, we get a starter pistol because a starter pistol follows the same laws under federal guidelines as traveling with a real firearm.
Sure.
So they'll throw a starter pistol in there, and that prevents the TSA being able to access their equipment without them
Without them
present.
present. Yeah.
So that's a big one. You have to have a hard case. It has to be able to take two locks, and you have to declare your firearm. And there's a couple of tips and tricks here. It's no different than getting pulled over with your firearm. You notice I use the word firearm. I very rarely say the word gun just because of my instructor experience. I almost never use the word weapon anymore, which was very difficult after the military because that's what we call it. You've used it 2 or 3 times now in this podcast, which is perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have to go check in somewhere, the last thing I want to do is and take a deep breath and accidentally say loud gun, right? And the guy 3 aisles down, all he heard was I have a gun.
Yeah.
So when you go and check in with a firearm, I almost always have a small pistol case and I put it in my check bag. I don't check it separately. When I was traveling in the industry, I had big rifle cases. That's a whole different story. So I would put a pistol case in my check bag, and you just let them know when you drop that bag off at the front gate. You just say very politely, I do have a firearm to declare, and you wait until they say whatever they say. You should be fully prepared for the person working the counter to have absolutely no idea what to do at this point.
Always.
Always. They
Yeah.
don't, it's the same as the reason that this paper that I've got in front of me suggests that you carry a copy of Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 44, 926A, is because you should not expect the local law enforcement to know this federal
No.
code. Why would they? You
Right.
didn't know about it until I just mentioned it on this
Sure.
podcast, you, the listener. So, yeah, don't expect them to know it just because they're in the position they are. Same as the young man or young woman that's checking you in with your bags at the airport. And that's why we don't say the word gun either, because it can make people nervous. I have a legal firearm to declare. I have a firearm to declare in my bags. I have a firearm to declare in my check bag, something along those sorts.
Not, hey, I got
Hey,
gats.
Yeah, I got gats. What you gonna do about it? Right?
All right.
So yeah, it's one of those things that you say nice and polite and expect them to not know what to do next. Also understand it's probably not the first time. So they might be a little nervous. They might have to find somebody. But the reason I say to not expect them to know is because they're very likely going to ask you to open your bag up and look at your setup.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will, again, small pistol case in a large check bag, my underwear and my shirts and all my stuff stuffed in there.
Flashlight.
Of course. Well, I would travel without that. The the chances are they're going to open up that check bag, see the locked case, and be done there, which is, I don't think, 100% correct. I think they're supposed to look in.
They are. Yeah.
Many other times, they will ask you to unlock that case. This is where I recommend that you travel with the 2 locks on there not being TSA approved, and I recommend that you have a code, not a key.
Not a key. Yeah.
If you have a key lock, you will forget your key.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
So you find something with a combination code, and then when you open that case, you don't touch anything. There's probably some dude armed watching you from a distance, right? I do travel with my ammunition in the original manufacturer's box in that case.
Not a Ziploc bag.
Not a Ziploc bag, right? Make it look professional. I actually cut out spots in my case on a phone so that it looks nice and professional in there. It's not just shoved in there. I know plenty of people that don't travel that way and they've never had an issue.
Right.
So I'm not saying that's the thing that you need to do. But when they open that case, it looks like I know what I'm doing. And I very often, as well, in that case, have went onto that airline, or I'm sorry, I went onto the TSA regulations and printed off the TSA regulations and put it in there with that case. In case for some reason they say I'm not allowed to do a thing, I have traveled with ammunition in the magazines, and I've got a little cutout in there for magazines, and it is perfectly allowed per TSA regulations. But many of the airlines will ask that you travel in the manufacturer's original box, and I'm traveling with up to 75, 80, 100 rounds of defensive ammo, which is $1 a piece. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to toss that and then have to buy new stuff wherever I go.
Sure.
So I'm typically keeping that in the original manufacturer's box in there with the firearm, and then let them look at it. They'll put a little tag saying that they looked at it. You lock it back up, close your baggage, and then they will walk you to the TSA X-ray.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to go early to do this.
I was gonna say, account for all this time.
Yeah.
Like add an hour.
Account for all the time and account for maybe they don't like guns and they're just going to make it take longer.
Yeah.
That is a thing that you will experience. The longer you spend as a firearm advocate, people will judge you both ways. Well, firearm advocates judge non-firearm people all the time as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that you want to account for more time is not necessarily the check-in process. It's the TSA X-ray process. You have to stand there until your bag goes through. The reason for that is if for some reason they come up with an issue that they need to open it back up, they cannot technically legally open it without you present, and you will just not get your bag.
Right.
You can continue on. Your just bag won't get checked, and you don't get it. Right. So you have to stay there until your bag clears that TSA area. Your TSA agent will typically give you the thumbs up, say, hey, you're good to go. And then you can go get in your security line and go check through as normal. Pretty easy process.
Mm-hmm.
It really, even though I kind of embellished there and made it sound difficult with the time that I was talking, it's not a difficult process. Declare your firearm, let them look at it, make sure it doesn't look like a ragtag, just cobbled up bag of shit. Right.
Cardboard box covered in duct tape with two
Right.
padlocks through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just act professional.
Mm-hmm.
I have a legally carried firearm to declare. That's it. It's nice and easy. And I've never had any experienced any problems. The one thing to be aware of, the Peaceable Journey Act, Title 18, Section 926A, Part 1, Chapter 44, states that you can go from point A to point C and travel through point B. Be totally aware that some of the major airports in this country, being New York, Chicago, and LA, three places you do not want to be with a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
If you get laid over and delayed, now you have stopped in point B.
Right.
And you are illegally possessing a firearm.
Right.
There are tons of stories. And I mean, we could Google this right now and come up with 100 different stories of people being arrested in New York and Chicago and LA because they are essentially marked that they are carrying a firearm. Their bag showed up with them. Here they are. And now they're told you're going to have to stay the night. And TSA can just very easily tell that NYPD officer on the way out, oh, by the way, he's got a gun in his bag.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in New York City. So I personally, just because I don't want to deal with that, I try to not do layovers. I do nonstop flights, and even if I have to pay extra. And if I do a stop in between, I always verify that that is a place that I can legally own that firearm.
All right.
Especially in this last year, as much as I travel, I have, I've missed how many flights now.
Yeah.
It's a thing that I complain about every time I have to go somewhere. I've missed being a key speaker at a large Memorial Day event recently. I missed out on a day at the shop that we had a big sale going on. I missed out on my kids' kindergarten graduation almost just because of being delayed for flights in this last year. This is the new normal.
Yeah.
So something to be aware of. What else? What else should we talk about traveling? Oh,
suppressors.
Also, I'm going to rewind 27-ish minutes. You had mentioned not carrying long guns very often in your truck and don't use your truck. I will say I almost always exclusively if I'm driving somewhere. I went to Chattanooga recently. I've been down to Indy recently, up to Detroit. I almost always have an AR in my truck with me. It's just, so when we're traveling, understand that this is where I'm kind of leading into this because of silencers and short barrel rifles and machine guns and stuff like that. Because
NFA items.
Yes, I have all of those things. Most people listening to this might not, but we're gonna talk about it anyways. I travel with an AR underneath the seat in a lockable. I bought a specific thing for a Ford F-250, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a lockable thing for rifles, but understanding that does change the law sometimes. That's not concealed carry.
Yep.
And the benefit I have there is I do have an ammunition, or that's a separate lockable box. So I can now travel through some of these states where I cannot conceal carry. So I can take my gun off and I still know that AR is there.
Right.
And I don't carry it loaded. I carry it with a magazine separate. I typically have a pistol on me like you, and that pistol is to fight my way to the back seat and get that AR.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about silencers. You on silencers?
Silencers.
No, there's not.
No, none of my guns are hanging in here.
Mine isn't either. Look at that. We've got several empty spots in the.
Gosh.
We need to fill that back up.
Slackers.
The problem is it's all our personal guns. We need to get that Egyptian thing up there and get it down here, and it's cool. And I don't think you can see it on the video.
It is cool.
The guns that we typically carry. So the Maxim PDX. That's our home defense guns. I have a different AR in my truck because my PDX is my live by the bed gun. They almost always have a silencer. I got another woodchuck, by the way, not with a 4570.
Dang it.
Complete squirrel moment. Squirrel. I had to think about it. Yesterday it was raining all day. Or maybe it was the day before. It was Sunday. It was raining all day, and man, the woodchucks. As soon as it stops raining and there's still light out, they like to come out and
Yeah,
hunt
sure.
for grubs and stuff like that. And I was sitting on the couch, just kind of relaxing. It was Sunday, and I thought, "There's a woodchuck in the yard right now." And there was. I got up and I walked and I started looking where I know they hang out, and I saw one, and he was a distance. That's why I didn't use the 4570.
Yeah.
He was at least 85 to 100 yards, and I don't know where that rifle's like sighted in perfectly yet. I
Sure.
haven't shot it in a while, but I know my AR. So I took the Sandman off of my PDX, threw it on my AR that lives next to the balcony,
Yeah.
and I tagged a woodchuck with it the other day. But that goes back to the silencer lives on my PDX.
Sure.
Your silencer lives on your PDX.
All the time. It's
Yeah.
rock setted on there.
Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. It
Yeah,
is.
it's
Like
there.
when you Cerakote that thing, it gets Cerakoted with the barrel.
does.
It's on there. And so traveling with a silencer is much easier than many people assumed,
Mm-hmm.
us included.
Right.
NFA items, so National Firearms Act of 1934, regulates.
Oh, communism. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Uh, yeah, who was the president there? It was FDR. Yeah, it was pretty much as close to communism as you can get. He did a lot of good for us. Shit, let's actually drink a whiskey here.
So yeah,
Yes,
NFA items.
NFA items regulated short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, machine guns, silencers, and any other weapon.
Because of course hearing protection should be
Right.
should be regulated by the
Right.
federal government.
We're doing inventory tonight. Dave's pouring us more whiskey. For those of you wondering what's clicking around in the background that don't watch this by video, and it's Bullet whiskey.
It's bullet.
This episode of the Cross Rifle sponsored by Bullet Bourbon. Here, hold on. There you go. You can join in on that. That's a sponsor we need to go after.
I know, right?
That's good Jeep whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I went down. I was trying to talk and drink whiskey at the same time. I remember my first time.
Don't breathe that shit.
All right. We're doing inventory after this. Like right after this, I have to go to a meeting. And then we have to do inventory here at the shop. So when Jen's wondering why I'm not doing inventory very well and why I can't count, I'm going to tell her.
While you're surfing around on the fucking cart.
Right. Silencers. National Firearms Act 1934 regulates all those things that I already mentioned 3 times because I keep on getting distracted. And silencers are one of them. When you travel with an NFA item, I have another piece of paper here because I was not about to
You
remember.
are so prepared.
Pre
I'm impressed.
I even wrote it on the board back there. So the NFA, if you want to travel with a National Firearms Act item, you have to fill out a ATF form 5320.20, 5320.20, right? It is called the application to transport interstate or to temporarily export certain National Firearms Act, parentheses, NFA, firearms, parentheses, NFA, non-parentheses, firearms. So it's a really easy form to fill out,
right.
and all you're doing is saying, here's the thing that I'm taking, here's who I am, here's the time period that I think I'm going to be, where
Duration
I'm
of my
going.
stay. Yeah.
That's it. And you have to send it in and wait for the approval to come back. So that's make sure you do this 3 to 5 weeks prior to your travel because it's the government and nothing's fast. So you need to get your approval back for this. Silencers are excluded.
That is a wonderful thing.
There are, last I checked, I'm going to guess, it's 40 or 42. One of those is correct. 40 or 42 states where silencers are legal to own.
Right.
Which means that they are going to fall under Title 18, Section 926A, Part 1, Chapter 44, which is the Peaceable Journey Act.
Yeah, but that's traveling through. But what about staying there?
That as long as it's legal to own there.
Okay.
It's just no different than a long gun,
Good
right?
deal. Yeah.
If we wanted to go to Colorado right now, well, that's a bad guess. Utah, I know silencers are illegal in Utah. I don't know if they're illegal in Colorado.
I don't
Colorado
know.
can be a little weird. It's the Wild West, but you can only have 10 rounds.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those. It's the Wild West. You can only have a 6-shooter, right? Unless you're Doc Holliday. No, so Colorado's a little weird. You can legally possess a silencer in Utah. So if you and I wanted to drive to Utah, as long as we checked which state silencers were legal to own in, and then we also maybe had that item locked up so that we could do the Peaceable Journey Act, we can go to Utah, get that silencer out and use it, as long as we were using it by their laws.
Hmm.
So pretty easy to travel with silencer. Traveling with silencer on plane, something that I was very experienced with. The manufacturer that I worked for was a 0702, which is a manufacturer of NFA items. We made silencers,
Hmm.
and that's how I kind of came to know and travel with silencers. And we just checked them, same as we did firearm. I would not verify this. It could be me, it could be somebody else that I was talking about, and I don't know that the time has lapsed where this would still not be a offense. But if I maybe told a story about a guy that thought to himself, it's just a tube of steel, do I really need to check this in? And just put it in his bag, right? So maybe he had acquired a silencer and didn't want to dick around with the process, full well knowing that the young lady,
Terrified.
full well knowing that the young lady or young man that was going to be checking him in was going to look at it as just a piece of metal, right? It's a tube of metal.
Yeah.
All I can say is that I can verify that this person, who shall remain unnamed, who acquired this silencer legally, that part was legal,
Right.
did travel with a silencer just stuffed in his bag. I think shoved in his shoe,
And didn't get in trouble
traveled
for
right through, because it's just a tube of metal, man.
it.
Which is
Yeah.
why none of us agree that they should be
I was gonna
regulated.
say it sounded like Private Snuffy trying to come back from Iraq with 12 hand grenades in his duffel
It's
bag.
just a tube of steel
It's
that
just
makes it hearing safe to shoot.
yeah. I don't understand why silencers are part of the NFA to begin with.
Right.
It's stupid.
But I would not recommend trying to do what this
No, no,
individual
no,
did.
no,
I would, like nowadays, if I travel, and I very rarely travel with silencers. If I'm traveling with a firearm, it's for self-protection purposes, meaning it's just a pistol. And while I do see firearms as a defensive tool for in-home defense, I don't see them as something you're going to conceal carry or carry around very often. So if I'm traveling, I can't remember the last time I flew with a silencer, or even really drove anywhere with a silencer. But you check it the same way you would a firearm that I was mentioned earlier. It's no different. Just say I have a, and you're gonna get some weird looks. I know that for a fact. If you have just a silencer, because that was a as a
well, that
manufacturer,
makes you a government assassin, don't you know?
right? Oh yeah, that's because they go. That's how they
They
shoot,
do.
right? That's how they all sound. I know for a fact that if you travel without other firearms and you just have a silencer in that case, and you declare a legally owned firearm, and you open it up for that person, they're gonna look at it like, "Where's the gun?" You said there was a firearm in here, sir. What are you trying to pull over on us, right? That's a tube of steel. That's not a gun. You know, I hate to break it to you, but it is, right?
You know what we should do? Squirrel. We should make a grease gun top that's threaded to go into the what's the inch and 3/8 by 28, whatever those
Yeah, yeah.
threads
The
are
the
on that.
standardized
That'd be
silencer
pretty
does.
funny, wouldn't it? You just
Yes,
thread in the grease gun top.
done. It's a great business
Not that
decision.
I would ever try and subvert the federal government or their inspections
No,
in any
I
way.
love how you started twirling,
I
like you're
did.
like that very nervous tick there
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
started saying that.
yeah.
Yeah. So traveling with a firearm, airport, you can legally own or legally possess a firearm in the airport. That's
Mhm.
something that I catch people with in CCW classes. Can you have a gun at the airport? Everybody says no. Well, then how do you check it? You can up until the checkpoint. You can't go past security.
Mhm.
Checking a firearm, make sure it's two locks, not TSA approved. You can. I recommend against TSA approved. Just a cheap Harbor Freight. It needs to be a case that you, with it locked, you can't still get in, and
Right.
that's
So
important.
yeah, so you can't have hinges like exposed hinges and they have to be cupped
Right.
and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So your typical, and the reason I say that like that, your typical hard case that comes with a firearm, it would not tip
No, because you
people.
can
I've
just
seen
push
people
the
get
pin
by with
on
some of them, like
it.
some of them,
It depends on who's looking at it.
right?
Yeah.
But most of them, no. Most of like the Glock cases, they're too flimsy.
Yeah.
You can get into it too easily. So yeah, check your firearms. Don't use the word gun. Fly where you're going. Do your thing. Follow all the laws there. As far as reciprocity, check out USCCA or any of these other Google in class. We just Google exactly what you said. Ohio CCW reciprocity.
Oh yeah. It's
Hit
everything you need.
hit Google, and the first or second link is going to have all of the
Yeah,
information.
if you're a knuckle dragger like me, there's like maps
Mm-hmm.
that are colored,
Yep.
like
Green, red, and yellow.
yeah,
Like
yeah, just look at the legend, good to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But again, these are all controlled by each individual state, so it may be legal your CCW may be legal. That doesn't mean you can drive with it. That doesn't, just check out the states you're going to and the activities you plan on doing in those states. Just look and make sure before you go.
Yep. I think that covers most. I'm going to take the time now. If somebody has made it this far through our rambling of how we travel with guns,
Congratulations and wake up, please.
I'm going to take the time to ask politely if you will subscribe to our podcast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we should ask that.
we should.
We should probably ask that at the beginning. But if you've made it to this point, subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, even if you're not watching on YouTube, how about you go to YouTube, type The Crossed Rifles, you'll get our channel. And we post this so you can see the lovely Dave and Luke while we talk. And like and subscribe to our channel there. And subscribe with all your favorite podcast apps, and it really helps. It helps us. We're trying to what they call monetize the channel. Monetize means that as we get more views, we can run a little ads at the bottom and get paid a little bit of money, and we can review more things and have more advanced stuff and things. And it just helps. This costs us time and money, and we love doing it.
Yeah,
But to get some of that back, we might be able to provide better content to you. So it helps us out if you subscribe to however you listen to the
for
podcast.
sure.
And we have some other cool videos.
Oh yeah, we do Cerakote tutorial videos. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. On that note, I think I'm gonna let you guys go. I have to go to a meeting, one room over in my office. Actually, yeah, I'm not late yet.
I
I
was
got
gonna say 7 minutes
I got
ago.
about 12 more minutes. Yeah. So I've got to go to a meeting here and sit through that, and then I've got to do inventory, and then I'm probably gonna go home and drink more whiskey now that I've started.
All right,
Okay, see you guys.
peace out.